Margaret whispered in Tony's ear, "I'm going to show you something only I know." Tony was surprised because what could be kept secret in a palace? But the room Margaret led him to would change all of Tony's thoughts about the royal family, because that room was Margaret's real world, and Tony would see a princess's vulnerabilities, fears, and deepest secrets for the first time. In the 3rd month of their love, Tony was already familiar with the official sections of Buckingham Palace: photo shoots with Elizabeth, official receptions, protocol meetings, always the same magnificent rooms, always the same formal atmosphere. But the places Margaret wanted to show Tony were very different. "Tony," Margaret had said one evening, "I want to take you to my real home." "Isn't this already your home?" Tony had asked. "No," Margaret had said, smiling. "This is Princess Margaret's home. I'm going to take you to Margaret's home." Tony hadn't understood this distinction but had followed Margaret. Margaret took him to a very different part of the palace. To the 3rd floor they reached by elevator, to the old servants' quarters, where nobody went. "What is this?" Tony had asked. "This is my childhood refuge," Margaret had said as she opened the door. Tony was shocked when he entered. The room was very small and simple, but it was completely filled with Margaret's personality. Childhood drawings on the walls, adventure novels on the bookshelves, a small gramophone in the corner. "This room is very different," Tony had said, "because this is real, not official." Margaret's voice was soft, almost shy. "As a child, I would escape here. This was next to my nanny's rooms. Nobody would come here looking for a princess." Tony examined the room more carefully. In every corner were traces of Margaret's personality. "These books are very interesting," said Tony, looking at the shelves. "Robinson Crusoe, Treasure Island, Sherlock Holmes," Margaret was saying proudly. "I always read adventure books, not princess books." "Why?" "Because being a princess was boring enough already." This confession had greatly impressed Tony. Margaret showed him her old drawings. Most weren't normal children's drawings. Ships, horses, distant lands. "I always dreamed of escaping," Margaret had said. "In these drawings, I'm always somewhere else." "Do you still want to escape?" Margaret had answered, looking into Tony's eyes. "Not anymore, because I have a place to escape to." "Where?" "To your side." Tony had kissed Margaret in that small room. This kiss was very different because here, Margaret was completely herself. "Does anyone else know about this room?" Tony had asked. "Only you." "Why did you show me?" "Because I want you to meet the real Margaret." From that moment on, Tony's experience in the palace completely changed. Margaret showed him many more secret places. The small terrace on the top floor, the forgotten pavilion in the garden, the old playroom in the basement. Everywhere there were traces of Margaret. Photos she secretly kept, poems she wrote, objects she collected. "You are a very different woman," Tony had said. "How different?" "Much deeper, much more complex." Margaret had been pleased with these comments, but what was truly shocking was the most secret room Margaret showed Tony. On the very top floor of the palace, in a small attic space, was Margaret's private sanctuary that nobody knew about. "How did you find this?" Tony had asked. "I discovered it when I was 12, while escaping from my nanny." This room was like a real treasure. Everything Margaret had collected over the years was here. Old diaries, secret letters, handmade jewelry. "When did you write these diaries?" Tony had asked. "Since I was 13. I write every night." Tony was looking at the diaries while Margaret worried. "You won't read them, will you?" "Of course not. This is your private world." This behavior had greatly relieved Margaret. She could see that Tony respected her. "But I might read them to you one day," Margaret had said. "If you want." "I would love that. But when you're ready." Margaret then showed Tony her special music collection. Jazz records, blues singers, French chanteuses. "The royal family doesn't consider this music appropriate," she had said. "Then why do you listen to it?" "Because this music makes me feel alive." Tony had played a record. Margaret's eyes closed, caught up in the rhythm of the music. "Will you dance?" Tony had asked. "Here? Why not?" And they had danced in that small attic room. No protocol, no rules, just the two of them. "This is very beautiful," Margaret had said. "You are very beautiful. I will never forget this moment. I won't forget it either." These moments were among the most precious in Margaret's life. This was exactly when everything changed, because Tony, seeing Margaret truly vulnerable for the first time, would make the bond between them much deeper. One evening, Tony had found Margaret different from expected. She seemed very quiet and thoughtful. "Is something wrong?" Tony had asked. "No, everything is fine," Margaret had said, but her voice wasn't convincing. Tony hadn't pursued this topic further, but he could sense Margaret's discomfort. That evening, Margaret had taken Tony to her secret room, but this time for a very different purpose. "Tony," Margaret had said, "I want to tell you something." "What is it?" Margaret had hesitated. "This is very personal." "I'm listening." Margaret had begun speaking after taking a deep breath. "I spoke with Elizabeth today. She said I shouldn't rush about marriage." Tony had been worried. What did she mean? "She meant that you're not yet suitable for the royal family." These words had hurt Tony, but Margaret had continued. "But I told her this. I love Tony, and there's no such thing as rushing when it comes to this love." Tony had been impressed by Margaret's courage. So what did Elizabeth answer? "She asked me for time. She wants to think." "What do you think?" Margaret had answered, looking into Tony's eyes. "I've decided to be with you, whatever Elizabeth's decision." This decision had deeply moved Tony. "Margaret, are you doing this for me?" "I'm doing this for myself, because you make me happy." And Margaret had started crying. Tony had never seen Margaret cry. This moment was very intimate. "Why are you crying?" Tony had asked gently. "Because I'm scared," Margaret had said. "What are you scared of?" "I'm scared of losing you." Tony had embraced Margaret and calmed her. "You won't lose me. I will never leave you." "Really? Really? You are the most precious part of my life." Margaret had cried on Tony's chest. This moment had greatly strengthened the bond between them. "Tony," Margaret had said, "I've never shown myself like this to anyone." "How haven't you shown?" "My weak side, my fears, my real emotions." "You're not weak, Margaret. You're very strong. But sometimes I get very tired." "Of course you get tired. You have very heavy responsibilities." "You understand me." "I try to understand you." This conversation was a very important moment for Margaret. She had completely opened up to someone for the first time. After that night, Margaret and Tony's relationship became much deeper. Margaret now showed Tony her most personal things: poems she wrote at night, childhood photos, secret worries. "This poem is very beautiful," Tony had said. "Did you really like it?" "I loved it. Very sensitive." Margaret was very talented in writing, but nobody knew this. "Why do you write poetry?" Tony had asked. "Because I can't express my feelings any other way." "Have you thought about publishing these poems?" "No, that would be very scandalous." "Why? They're very beautiful." "Because princesses don't publish poetry, but Margaret could publish." This suggestion had made Margaret think deeply. Tony had also seen Margaret's handicrafts and was very surprised. "Did you make these?" he had asked, looking at the handmade jewelry. "Yes, I make them at night." "They're very beautiful. You're very creative." "Do you really think so?" "Absolutely. You're very talented." Margaret rarely heard such praise. The royal family didn't much support creative hobbies. "Tony," Margaret had said, "you see me differently." "How differently?" "You don't see me as a princess, but as a woman." "Yes, you are first a woman, then a princess." This perspective was very valuable to Margaret. You haven't seen the biggest surprise yet, because the special rituals Margaret and Tony developed would make the bond between them much stronger. Margaret and Tony had developed a special ritual every Sunday morning. Tony would come through the palace's back entrance. Margaret would take him up the secret stairs to the attic room. "Sunday mornings are my favorite time," Margaret had said. "Why?" "Because then there are only the two of us." These Sunday mornings were very sacred to them. First, they would listen to music. Margaret had started collecting records that Tony liked too. "Where did you find this music?" Tony had asked. "I searched especially for you." "For me?" "Yes, I'm trying to learn your tastes." This thoughtful behavior had made Tony very happy. Then they would drink tea together, but not normal royal tea, special tea blends that Margaret secretly obtained. "This tea is very different," Tony had said. "I had it specially brought from India." "How?" "I have secret ways," Margaret had said, smiling. Tony loved this mischievous side of Margaret. During tea, they would tell each other their deepest thoughts. "Tony," Margaret had said one Sunday morning, "these moments I spend with you are the most beautiful moments of my life." "I feel the same way. You make me very happy." "You make me very happy too." "I wish it could always be like this." "Why can't it be?" "Because the outside world exists." Tony understood Margaret's concerns. "The outside world cannot separate us." "Are you sure?" "Very sure. Our love is very strong." This conversation had brought them even closer. Margaret had started making special gifts for Tony. Bookmarks she made by hand, small portraits she drew, short poems she wrote. "This is very beautiful," Tony had said upon seeing the handmade bookmark Margaret gave him. "Did you like it?" "I loved it. Very special." "This is only for you. I will always keep this gift." Margaret's face had lit up with happiness. Tony also gave Margaret special photos as gifts. But these weren't official photos. They were intimate photographs capturing Margaret's natural moments. "You look very beautiful in this photo," Tony had said. "Really?" "Yes, very natural and happy." "No one else will see these photos, will they?" "Of course not. These are only ours." This privacy was very important to Margaret. One day, Margaret had confessed her biggest secret to Tony. "Tony, I want to confess something to you." "What is it?" "I sometimes feel very lonely." Tony was surprised. "Why? There are so many people around you." "Yes, but none of them really see me." "How don't they see?" "They only see Princess Margaret. They don't see Margaret." "I see Margaret. Yes, you really see me." "And how do you feel?" "Very happy. I feel understood for the first time." This confession was very significant for Tony. Margaret completely trusted him. Wait a minute, don't miss this detail, because Margaret's biggest fear that she revealed to Tony would deepen the intimacy between them even more. One evening, Margaret looked very sad. When Tony asked the reason, Margaret didn't answer for a long time. "Margaret, you can talk to me." "Tony, I got very scared." "What are you scared of?" Margaret answered with tears in her eyes. "I'm scared that you'll get bored of me." This confession greatly surprised Tony. "Why would I get bored of you?" "Because I am a very complex woman, a very difficult woman." "You're not difficult, Margaret. You're just different." "But I'm sometimes very moody, sometimes very demanding." "These things make you more interesting." "Do you really think so?" "Absolutely. You are a very fascinating woman." "But what if you get tired of me one day?" Tony had taken Margaret's hands and looked into her eyes. "Margaret, I love you. With all your complexities, with all your moods." "All of them?" "All of them. Because these are the things that make you who you are." Margaret had started crying. "Nobody ever said such things to me." "Because nobody really knows you." "Do you know me?" "I'm trying to know you, and the more I learn, the more I love." These words had healed Margaret's heart. "Tony, I love you very much too." "I know, and I will never leave you." "I will never leave you either." This moment was the deepest point of their love. After that night, Margaret had completely opened up to Tony. She shared every thought, every feeling, every fear. "I sometimes feel very strange," she had said one night. "Why?" "Because I live a very different life. I'm not a normal woman." "What is normal anyway?" "I don't know, but I've always wondered. You are much more special than a normal woman. But I sometimes want to be normal." "Aren't you normal when you're with me?" Margaret had thought, "Yes, I feel most normal when I'm with you." "That's enough then." This conversation had greatly comforted Margaret. Tony had also started revealing his own vulnerabilities to Margaret. "Margaret, I sometimes feel insecure too." "You? Why?" "Because I am an ordinary man, and you are a princess. You're not ordinary, you're very special." "Do you really think so?" "Absolutely. You're the only person who understands me. I love you very much too." This mutual vulnerability had made them much closer. What you've seen so far is nothing, because Margaret and Tony's private world that belonged only to them was completely separating them from real life. Margaret and Tony's time in the attic room had now become real life for them. The outside world was just a game. Real life was there. "Tony," Margaret had said one day, "this room is our real home." "What do you mean?" "This is only ours. No protocol, no rules can enter here." "You're right. This is our sanctuary. And here I am only Margaret. You are only Tony. This is very beautiful." This room had become very sacred to them. Margaret had personalized it even more. Tony's photos, secret photos they took together, objects Tony loved. "This room now tells our story," Margaret had said. "Yes, there's something of us in every corner. And this will never end. Never end." Tony had also started making his own contributions there. Letters he wrote especially for Margaret, intimate photos he took, special objects he found. "This letter is very beautiful," Margaret had said. "I wrote it especially for you." "I will always keep these letters." "I will keep your letters too." These exchanges were very precious to them. One day, Margaret had shown Tony something very special. "Tony, I'm going to show you my last secret." "What secret?" Margaret had taken out a small box from the most hidden corner of the room. "What is this?" Tony had asked. "This is my treasure box. I started collecting when I was a child." Margaret had opened the box. Inside were very old and precious objects: a small ballerina figurine, an old bracelet, dried flowers. "These are very special," Tony had said. "Each one has a special memory." Margaret had told the story of each object. Tony found it fascinating. "Now it's your turn," Margaret had said. "Why?" "You add something to this box, too." "What should I add?" "Something from our story." Tony had thought and removed the small ring from his finger. "What is this?" Margaret had asked. "This ring is from my grandfather, very precious." "Will you give this?" "Yes, because now our love is the most precious thing." Margaret had been very moved and placed the ring in the box. "Now this box is not just mine, but ours, our treasure box. And we'll add every new memory here, every new memory." This ritual had been very meaningful for them. You won't believe it, but Margaret and Tony's intimacy had made their love much stronger and unbreakable. Margaret could no longer live without Tony. He had become not just her boyfriend, but her soulmate. "Tony," Margaret had said one evening, "you are my soulmate. You are mine too. We were created for each other. Absolutely. We are a perfect match. And nothing can separate us. Nothing." This deep connection had made them strong against everything, including the royal family. Margaret no longer took Elizabeth's objections very seriously. "Whatever Elizabeth says," she had told Tony, "I choose you. Are you sure?" "Very sure you are my true love. You are mine too." This unconditional love made them feel invincible. Tony was also ready to risk everything for Margaret. "Margaret, I would fight against the royal family for you." "Would you really do that?" Absolutely, you are my life. You are my life, too. This mutual devotion made their love legendary. The intimate moments they spent in Margaret's secret room formed the real foundation of their love. "Tony," Margaret had said in one of their last private evenings, "what we experienced in this room are the most beautiful memories of my life. Mine, too. We became just Margaret and Tony here. And that was wonderful. I will never forget this. I will never forget either. And this love will always stay like this. Always stay like this." Margaret and Tony's special moments behind palace doors had made their love not only romantic, but also deeply spiritual. Because there, both had removed their masks and shown their real selves. And this intimacy had taught them that true love is strong enough to withstand external circumstances. This story teaches us the strongest loves are born when two souls are completely open and vulnerable. Margaret and Tony's private moments had based their love not just on passion, but on deep understanding. And this understanding had made them strong together against all obstacles.